Good evening, everyone, and I'd like to welcome you and open our Lucan Biddulph Council meeting for Tuesday, July the 11th. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest? Okay, seeing none. So since we met last, there has certainly been a lot of excitement around the Lucan Biddulph Community Memorial Center. And we were pleased to be able to welcome our residents to the pool on July 1st. And I had fun, and Councillor Regan was there watching, christening the pool with the lifeguards, and to encourage our residents to come out and to rediscover our pool. I think that anybody that has seen the pool and been able to experience it in the last 10 days will really be excited about the improvements and the investment that we've made there. But it was with much anticipation and a whole lot of hard work that we were also able to open the doors on the community center on July 1st. And we were able to welcome our residents into the building when they could explore on their own, doing their own self-guided tours. And while there are still some finishings yet to be installed, the doors are open for business. And I think most of you were up at the community center on July 1st for the Canada Day festivities. And like me, I'm sure that you were encouraged by all the positive feedback that was and continues to be shared when someone new goes through the building. I do want to confirm that we are working on an official opening for the fall, so stay tuned for more details on that. But most importantly, I really want to thank Paul and the staff over at the community center for all they did to make sure that the doors could be opened on July 1st. There was incredible effort put in by everyone on the team, and it has not gone unnoticed. I know that the facility will be well used over the coming months, and I hope that our residents really do enjoy the improvements that we have invested in. I look forward to the official opening, but again, Paul, on behalf of council and the rest of the staff, and really the residents of Lucan Biddulph, your staff really went above and beyond to make sure that we could enjoy it as of July 1st. So congratulations and thanks for everything that you did. Okay, with that, we will get into the meat of our meeting. And first up, we do have a couple of delegations, and I do want to welcome our friends from Aqua up to the speaker's desk. And joining us, of course, is Dave Sharp and Renee Hornick. And it's great, as always, to have you in person, and I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and councillors and members of municipal staff. Thank you for having us here tonight. Everybody has been circulated a copy of the first quarter reports for your wastewater treatment plants. Just a little overview of the highlight page. The Granton plant exceeded the TSS objective once in the first quarter. It did not result in a non-compliance. The average for the 3 months, the beginning of this year, was 5.4 milligrams per liter TSS. That's a 45% decrease from 2022. Chemical addition at that plant is not flow based, and variations in flow and raw water and huge infiltration in Granton does create a lot of challenges at that plant. There was one bypass reported for the Granton wastewater treatment plant. It was due to a power failure when there a generator failure. When there was a power failure, there was a loose wire on a generator and it failed. We resolved that very quickly. The Granton SBS still continues to experience clogging of pumps due to cloth type material that we've been talking about for over a year. And they are frequently clogging after a major rainstorm. Sludge haul from Granton wastewater treatment plant to the Lucan plant. It's on a regular monthly schedule now, and doing that is really helping to keep the plant within its set parameters. The Lucan plant, there was a lot of flow coming into it for the 3 months of the spring. We were about 300 cubes a day over our normal average for that time. The higher flows are obviously a result of higher rainfalls in the first quarter and the infiltration in sewers. Some extra sampling was required for these flows. We did have a clarifier failure at one point on February 8th. We notified the MECP and extra samples were taken while we took the clarifier down to ensure that there was no damage to it. Turned out to be a broken shear pin, so it was put back into service. Other than that, it's been fairly quiet and all's good.
Good.
Thank you.
Great. Well, thank you very much for that, Dave. Are there any questions for Dave on the report that he's submitted? Councillor Westman.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. Appreciate the report. Regarding the Granton pumping station, the wastewater treatment. So the pump issues with clogging with cloth-like material. Now we have budgeted for some shredder pumps to go in. When is that expected? Is that where?
Jeff could probably give you a closer idea of that. We've been discussing it for the last couple of weeks. I think it's very close to being moved forward.
Yeah, and through the mayor, so we have quotes on the pump and we just have to, so we've got a supplier on the pumps. BM Ross put the information together on the proper pumps and with working with Aqua on going through the quotes. I think we've got that organized and we just got to now nail down a contractor to install the pumps.
Yeah. I'm still a big fan of education too. I think we could really do a lot more outreach to make sure we're reaching residents to let them know that it's the flushable wipes, I assume, are the biggest part of it, and they're not flushable. A lot of them say right on the package, do not flush. So I think if we could maybe partner up with our communications and get some word out there, about fats, oils, and grease, my big project, and the flushable or the non-flushable stuff. Like we did a program through Portamus River Conservation Authority where there's some video information, like a video presentation that goes out there. It says your toilet is not a garbage can. It might be an idea to have something like that to put out. I don't know if Aqua has something like that on deck that they can maybe share, or if not, we can maybe tailor the one from London to suit our needs out here. I do have that video available.
Yeah, through your mayor. Aqua is actually relaunching our Do Not Flush program this fall. We're just in the early stages of getting everybody organized to do it. A couple of my staff are that also was at the schools here earlier this year are going to be participating in that and traveling around and helping the grade 7 and 8 students and sending educational equipment home or tools home with them. So it's
Thank you for that. Just before I go to Councillor Regan, just jumping off that, those were my notes as well, was the education. Because in my mind, like, I think we've already done the education, and at what point do we say enough is enough? So number one, I'm glad that we've moved ahead with the investment in the shredder pumps. I think that will make a huge difference. But I do wonder if we maybe take the education up a notch and maybe look at maybe some door knockers or something, because for whatever reason, we've done everything we possibly can. And we could say to our residents, you can go back through our minutes and look at these reports. I would dare say it's been longer than a year that we've been having these issues in Granton. So something is not getting through to our residents. And I think it's time that we become a little bit more aggressive. So maybe we can work on maybe in conjunction with the Do Not Flush campaign and look at a door knocker or something like that, because I think we have to put it right, give it right to them, hand to hand sort of thing. Councillor Regan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thanks, Dave. Hi, Renee. Just that point under the first point under the highlights for the Lucan wastewater treatment plant. It says that we're currently at 89% of the rated capacity. Is that just raw flow, or is that with runoff as well? Because that's like, and is that not a lot higher than the last time we had a report? That just seems dangerously high.
maybe you can.
Well, you want me to?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so
She has more history.
this is the
Yeah,
first
yeah.
quarter. So the first quarter is typically higher than the summer months will bring the average down, first of all. And it could be higher. It depends. Like this, it has been a wet year so far. So it could be typically higher, but I would think it will dip down once we get into the summer months of the drought.
Great. So that's a combination. That number represents a combination. Okay, because I didn't know, because the way it was written, it looks like it's raw fluid, raw
yes.
sewage flow, and I thought that's,
Any infiltration, yes.
yeah, all right. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Any other questions for Dave or Renee? Councillor Hodgins.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just looking at figure 9 and 10. And maybe figure 8 as well. Just some of the effluent quality information, the TSS and the TP. It looks like those values have gone down a lot. So that would mean, I guess, we're treating the wastewater better, or putting out better wastewater back into the river compared to last year's, and just wondering if there's anything in particular that was done to improve the quality of that water treatment.
We've done a lot of repairs in the last year, and a lot of improvements, a lot of cleaning, once COVID was over. Just, yeah, and the,
One of the,
this is Lucan.
were you speaking of Lucan or Granton?
Yes, for Lucan.
Oh,
That's
okay,
Lucan,
all
yeah.
right, yes, sorry.
But yeah, this is a lot of maintenance and, maybe slightly different practices and stuff like that to making everything seem to be better. And I was even showing Renee when we were over there earlier that, everything there is looking much better now. So.
Okay, yeah, I think that's good. It's positive to see, because it looks like last year we're sort of around our limit or overgoing our objective, but we've really improved that. So that looks great. And I just wanted to then ask, so with the wet weather, we see our flows go up a lot. So I guess there's stormwater, rainwater entering the system through inflow and infiltration. So do we have any plans to look into that further to address that problem of rainwater getting into the system? Or has there been anything done in the past, like in the past 5 or 10 years, to address I&I?
So through your mayor, we don't look after the collection system, your crew does. And I know they've been in Granton, plugging some manhole lids and putting some seals and stuff on there. But up to that, it's more to Jeff's be able to answer that, so.
Yeah, and through the mayor. So, and Ron can probably answer this a little bit better too, because he has a little more history. So in Lucan, there was a program back to try and address a lot of the connections with some of the stormwater sub pumps and stuff people have had in their homes years ago. In Lucan, there was a real, it was a financial program involved to address that. At this point, we still know there's some cross connection or some sub pump. At this point, it really hasn't been an issue in the Lucan system to put a program together, because the cost of the program and the benefits of it, you got to really weigh that idea. Now, in the Granton system, we do get a lot when you talk about percentages. Because the plant operates at such a low capacity under normal circumstances, when it does go up, we see it can go for, I forget how much. That's where we have our problems when we have a plant overflow in Granton, is during the high flow event. So I mean, we could put some, we've talked about maybe doing something in Granton. And again, it comes to, we have to weigh what we're achieving with those programs, because, a sub pump that's disconnected can be reconnected once you leave. Once you leave, doesn't mean that we can't police it. It's just, at what point are the benefits outweigh the program itself? So at this point, we don't have anything in place. It creates some problems at the operation side of things, but at this point, we've been able to handle it through the plant. So.
Any other questions? I just had one and it's back on the grant for the Granton plant, Dave, and the first, I guess it's the second paragraph in your memo indicates that we've had a decrease of 45% over 2022. And I guess that's significant. It's a good thing, but I guess what is that attributed to? Why such the decrease?
A lot of that would be contributed to, about a year ago, we started regularly hauling sludge out of there. So every month, about the middle of the month, we take 5 or 6 loads of sludge out of that little plant and bring it over and put it in Lucan. By doing that, we're getting rid of the old sludge and the organisms that have expired and are now causing us problems, causing the TSS. So we're getting those out of there and the plant's operating like it should. We did have an issue there a few weeks ago where the TSS was climbing up and we brought in trucks and I think we took 10 loads out in 2 days to drop it down and everything came back to normal again. So the 5 or 6 loads was just a guess by us saying 5 or 6, and maybe we need to take steadily 6 loads out or possibly 7 at times. And then the other thing that we've recently done is trying to, cut back on chemicals, but also not overdose in chemicals. So during nighttime hours and on normal times when it's not raining, there's not very much flow that comes in. There's very little flow with the pump sitting there running, adding chemicals all night long. We've put a timer on both chemicals that we had and literally shut them off throughout the night. So as not to waste the chemicals and that we believe it's still in the early stages because it's hard to tell when your flows are going up and down, but we're thinking that's helping and saving some chemicals as well. So.
Okay, well, that's great. Thank you. Oh, yep, Jeff.
Yeah, and just a bit of a follow-up. So this goes back to when I arrived and Rod was still at the plant. We did talk about bringing some of that material over, whether to the Lucan plant. Not a lot of details, and the idea was to try and create the process in that small plant that could work better. And so, and again, Renee and Dave could speak to this, but you don't change everything all at once. You do it in small processes. So this has been something that Aqua has been working on for almost 4 years at trying to get the Granton system to function better. Because I think when I came and Rod was here, there was some issues. So the plant, and I think if you tried to compare it back to 2018, boy, it's running pretty darn good. And I give it a credit to the whole Aqua team because everybody's pitched in. Renee, all the way along, has been working at this to get this plant working better. So we're getting, and I think it's showing. I think the signs are showing, and I give credit to less chemical by looking at reducing some of the chemical pump times. We used to have issues with fat buildup. We're finding that that's being looked after. So I think there's a lot of positives here, and I give total credit to Aqua's team at making sure we slowly get that plant working properly.
I appreciate you saying that, Jeff, because I was thinking that as I went through this report, and not that I know anything about how wastewater treatment plants work, although I know more than I did in 2010 when I came on council. And I have to say, I did think, we have seen improvements over the last couple of years, but I have to say in this report, I thought, wow, this is a really positive report for the Granton plant. So I'm glad that you pointed that out. So thank you for that. And thank you for all the work that you've done in investing in it and making those changes. So if there aren't any questions, then I'll say thank you very much for joining us. It was great seeing you. We might see you in August at AMO, but enjoy your summer. And yeah, thanks for coming in person.
Thank you.
Thank you.
With that, I would ask for a mover and a seconder to receive those reports for information, please. Councillor Westman and Councillor Regan. All in favor? And that's carried. Okay, our next presenters are from Middlesex County Connect, and I'm pleased to welcome to the speakers table Anam Maksud, who is the Community Transportation Manager, and joining Anam is Cindy Howard, who we all know is the General Manager of Finance and Community Services, and Kara Finn, the Director of Economic Development. And we can pull another chair if the three of you want to sit up there. Are you sure? Okay. I know, that's it. I'm thinking she's going to sit back there, but all the questions are going to be directed at Anam.
I know that when she needs.
Okay, I'll turn it over. Thanks, guys.
So thanks, and through the mayor and to council. It is a pleasure to be here tonight to discuss community transportation. We also have a presentation, so I hope it's going to go up. And when we want to the next slide, I can say next and then it'll move along. Okay, so we originally launched our intercommunity transit service September 21st, 2020. As I say 2020, yes, that is the middle of COVID when we actually launched our service. So as you can imagine, we had a lot of challenges right from the beginning. We started actually in Thames Centre and we had two routes. The one route went from Woodstock to Thorndale into London, and the second route went from Dorchester into London. Today, we're really going to be talking about the relaunch, but it's important to have a little bit of history where we started. We got funding from the province of Ontario, Community Transportation Grant Program. So it kind of came in two periods. We got 2018 to 2023, so that's a $1.5 million. And because of COVID and some of the challenges, not only our organization, but other municipality had launching our community transportation, they extended it for another 2 years. So that takes us into 2025. And that was just a little over $900,000 we have. In 2022, in July, we actually hired IBI Group to come in and do a county-wide transit needs assessment study. We actually received federal funding in order to do this. We also asked them to look at our community transit existing service, those two routes I mentioned earlier, and give us some ideas around where we can make improvements and changes. So that's where we get to the last bullet, and that talks about relaunching. And we kind of came forward with two new routes. I say two new routes. One was the two previous routes. We kind of combined them and looked at the successes that we had with those two routes to make one route. And that route now is from Woodstock to Dorchester into London. And then the second route is into Lucan. And we'll talk about that as we carry forward. Next. So Middlesex Connect really ties nicely into the county strategic plan. And our strategic plan at the county is for 2021 to 2024. And the main areas of focus it is on cultivating community vitality, advancing a diverse, healthy, and engaged community. And of course, the last one, champion and encourage active transportation and public transit opportunities. Next. So on the right, here's a picture of actually one of our buses. We currently work with Boyago around the bus service. And we have two vehicles, as I mentioned, one in the Thames Centre and one in Lucan Biddulph into Middlesex Centre into London. So each bus actually has can hold 20 passengers, and we do have wheelchair accessibility. We also have a bike rack on the very front. If you go on our County of Middlesex website, you actually be able to see how you can put the bike on our transportation. And we didn't make any changes to the fares from the very beginning. It is $5 each way, whether you're on Route 1 or Route 2. Next. So as I kind of already mentioned, we have two routes. So the first one to Lucan, Ilderton, Arva into London. And the second route is from Woodstock, Ingersoll, Putnam, Dorchester into London. These both operate Monday to Friday, and currently we are not doing anything on the weekend, but we're going to be continually exploring and seeing if we need additional evenings or weekends, and that we'll be doing that over the next couple of years and really reaching out and talking to our community and see when they want to use our transit system. Next. So this just kind of is a little map that shows you how the two routes look, and it's really neat because they actually show you that they kind of connect. So the first one, as you know, is the Lucan, and then they ultimately end up in Woodstock. So you could theoretically go from Lucan, get off, and then get to Woodstock. And we'll talk about later, but there is other connections as well. Next. So the first route, which is Lucan, Ilderton, Arva, and London, there's 4 round trips per day. And we hope we picked the peak times for those. We picked this route really from the IBI recommendations because we have the ability to access over 2,700 residents. So we thought that was a great number of individuals that maybe potentially might use transit. And we also looked at what other community transportation systems were out there. So one of the ones that comes by here is the PC Connect, which is Route 3. So it goes from London, St. Mary's to Stratford. And when you are actually in Masonville Mall, so if you went from Lucan into Masonville Mall, you actually can pick up that one and then go back that way. So we really wanted to expand where individuals could go. And the other one we looked at, which is Huron Shores, which actually goes right through Lucan. We really looked at their routes and their times, and we made sure that our route had different times. So we really gave the residents here in Lucan a lot of opportunities. Next. So this slide just shows our AM route and the different times and the locations that we have on that one. Next. And this one shows our PM routes. The same idea. You can see where we start and where we end. And you can see our last one, which actually goes until 6:30 p.m. So we did try to, like I said, look at those peak times. And we are always very interested in hearing feedback from the community, from council members around how we can improve our service. Next. And the second one, I'll go quickly through this one, but that is Route 2. So that's the one that's going from Oxford County to Dorchester to London. There's 3 round trips per day. Again, we really looked at the successes. We've had a number of individuals going from Woodstock to Fanshawe College or Western. We've seen that as a huge success. And no surprise to any of you, if you're looking at rents, especially in the city of London, it's very difficult, one, to find a place to live and then also be able to afford it. So this public transportation is a great opportunity to allow our youth to be able to go to college or university right in the city of London, close to home, and live at home. Next. So this slide is just showing the AM routes, and you can see all the different stops. There's a number, and again, the Woodstock all the way to a number of stops in Dorchester and into London. Next. The previous one had the PM route, so same kind of idea. And now I'm going to turn this over to Cara Finn, and she's going to talk a little bit more about our service profile and some of our social media and marketing that we've been able to do.
So thanks, Cindy, and through you, Mayor. But I talk a little bit about the overall purpose of the service, really, and its profile. As you know, these programs have been set up as pilots throughout the province of Ontario for different purposes, and different municipalities have chosen different service profiles. Ours was really about looking for an affordable option, which I think we very much capitalized on given the rates that we've established and in keeping with those all throughout the pilot project. We have wheelchair accessibility for all of our buses. We've also established a very reliable service by working with Boyago and ensuring that we're always in constant communication, and Anum being with us has really aided in that as well, ensuring that the two are back and forth all the time, and we've established these communication channels if there are any issues. We have a connected service. So as Cindy has walked you through, we found every opportunity that we could to connect with other pilot projects coming from other counties to ensure that people have ease of service throughout. And a really other important thing about our service profile was to ensure that it's bike friendly as well. So that if you are requiring that transportation to get to or from, or if you're interested in taking that from the stop that you're ending up on, whether that be for recreational purposes or for motor transportation services, you've got that at your disposal as well. Also, our service really looked at what destinations were important for us and what ones could we capitalize on by offering our service in the way that we have laid it out. So number one was post-secondary institutions and ensuring, as Cindy said, that our youth are able to access that education, as we do not have any particular post-secondary institutions in the county itself. So ensuring that was number one. From an economic development perspective as well, looking at workforce and ensuring that we are capitalizing on all sorts of different workforce opportunities for people. We also wanted to allow people opportunities to access shopping. We wanted to ensure that we were ending up in transportation hubs. So access to LTC was really important, looking at Argyle Mall and Masonville Mall, for example, as key hubs that people could then transcend into other avenues for what they needed to access. We wanted to look at our libraries as well as an opportunity, as we know they are community hubs. Grocery stores were also important to access for all segments of our population, but particularly those that cannot access them themselves, and ensuring that they could bring those groceries on board certainly provided an extra service. We also looked at our recreation centers, so we now have access both in Lucan and Dorchester to those. Also wanting to ensure that our routes were aligned with people wanting to access things for social purpose as well as medical. So I thought today we'd talk to you a little bit about some of our passenger stories, because obviously that's what this is about, is ensuring that we are actually getting out to those that need the service. So the first story that Anam has put together for us today is really about Sundar. And Sundar is a really cool story because he is a newcomer to Middlesex County who was able to use our service in order to access an interview. And by doing so, he actually was accepted, received the job, and has found housing as well in the county. So just a great all-round story about an individual who was new to our communities and how they were able to use this service in a way that may have been normal to them in an urban center, but maybe not feeling as accessible in a rural setting, and was able to establish themselves, not even just from a worker's perspective, but also now a new resident. The next story is about Kim and Sharon. So Kim and Sharon actually decided to take the bus together for just an opportunity to access recreation. So they actually took our service from Dorchester into London to access the trails, and indicated that they have a plan on doing that on a regular basis from now on. So a different take on things. And then, of course, you may recognize these riders, but your mayor as warden, along with her deputy warden, Mayor Ina DeViet, hopped the bus as well and decided to spend a day on County Connect, seeing what the service is like. And not to put words in your mouth, but I know your intention is certainly to encourage people to access, and I'm sure you may be able to talk about what that opportunity was like for you, but you can see their day on our Facebook page as well. So we thank you for taking the time to do that. And then our next story is really cool as well, because this is Daniel, and Daniel was rider number 1 on our new route. And he accessed that service on our launch day from Elderton to London. And he is now one of our regular riders on the service, and really enjoyed the opportunity to be able to access it. So we've definitely been seeing people using the service, and we're going to be looking forward as well to more reports as time goes on as to how the service continues. So, talking about Daniel, we actually had the post go viral the first day we launched. So just to talk to you a little bit about that, eyeballs on this information were over 74,000, and we had 79,000 impressions going out there, places where people could see this information, and we had engagement in this of over 14,000 people. So some really good interest in what we're doing and these new routes, and garnering some excitement. So as we say, you know, stories inspire, and this is just a few of the reasons why we invest in public transit, because we know there is a cost associated. It's been a large cost that has been taken on by the province to date, and also the federal government, in allowing us the opportunity to evaluate our service and to make some changes and see how we can continue to improve going forward. So, you know, we need to talk about cost, and the cost of doing nothing, I think, is probably the more important thing to talk about, as opposed to the cost of investing. And the cost of doing nothing is ultimately a loss of residents. With new residents become a certain expectation of services, and public transit is one of those. As we've seen the exodus of people coming out of the urban centers, they have a different background and a different expectation and a different usage and knowledge of public transit that is not as commonplace in rural Ontario. And of course, we have seniors and youth unable to drive. And as our own populations of people age, we need to ensure that we're providing some kind of service and opportunity for them to access what they are used to accessing. And the reality is that we're in a situation where vehicles are very expensive. They're expensive to purchase, they're difficult to purchase, and they're expensive to drive. And so we do have a segment of the population that is looking to divest of that investment and is looking for an opportunity to access public transportation. And so that leads into the next, just the general high cost of living. We all are experiencing that. There is less disposable income available for people, and they are looking at more financial assistance. And this is, you know, one of the opportunities they may have to access. We also look at healthcare, and coming out of the pandemic, this is one of the really important things with respect to mental health and social conditions, is the isolation of some of our populations. Also accessing and prioritizing medical appointments is really important. And as we know at the county very well, there is a tremendous demand on our EMS services. And so this is actually one of the ways that we can help to offset that somewhat, in people prioritizing and being able to access those medical appointments. Ultimately as well, we're looking at employment opportunities. And as you know, there is a shortage of people. And one of the populations we definitely need to tap into is those that have not been able to access because of access to personal transportation. And so just as Sundar's example is there, there are more and more people just like him that are looking for that opportunity. And of course, parking issues, air pollution, and increased tourism access are also important things that we look at when we look at the value of public transportation. So ultimately, as council members, how can you help? You could definitely spread the word. And I'm very pleased to say that with a NUM in place, we have really expanded the ways in which we are communicating with people. So we have a customizable social media kit available for municipalities to use. We have posters that have been circulated throughout the communities as well, and can be posted in community spaces to inform populations. We also, on the next slide, have done up flyers and mail inserts. We have brochures, we have web banners available. A number has also been doing email blasts and e-newsletter. And you'll see our headers available when you go on to the website for the county as well. Number of social media posts, and of course this is everything from the new launch all the way through and on a regular basis now to inform people. There'll be different themes depending on time of year, different themes according to when post-secondary institutions will open up on a full-time basis as well. And so community support for this has been really great so far. So just an example, City of London has been helping to post the information. Huron Shores Area Transit, one of our connections, and as well Masonville Mall as well. So, opening things up to the municipality as well. We just want to remind you of our availability. And then I know Anam brought some promotional swag along today as well. She's always happy to get that out there into the community. So she's happy to share.
I think the
that.
counselors should ride the bus to get swag.
Yes, counselors are very much invited to ride the bus alongside our drivers and see what the experience is like. But also we're available to come out to your community events. So there is a tent, there's swag, there's brochures and our banners, and we're more than happy to have invitations to come out to anything that you think would be appropriate and share the information with your community. So here's our next steps. So we're very excited that we are launching this summer our app technology. So to date, people have been able to pay electronically as well as in cash on the bus. And we've been communicating everything through social media and website, but we are now launching with Blaze a new app technology so that it will be in real time, that people will be able to download the app and see everything that's happening with our buses. We also have our direct mail going out. So brochures are going to be sent out direct to households in Arva, Dorchester, Alderton, Lucan Biddulph, and Putnam. We're going to be continuing our communication efforts. So you're really going to see the marketing efforts continue to build to really bring out that awareness. And we're going to continue to engage in the community. And as I said, we invite you to invite us the opportunity to do that. So there will also be advertising opportunities. There are banners on the bus. There are headers on the bus where businesses can or municipalities can advertise. So we invite you to talk to Anam about those opportunities as well. And we're really going to continue our conversations, our collaborative planning with our other connections and pilot projects throughout the region to see what's possible. We're going to be advocating on behalf of these programs to ensure that there is some kind of continuation in some fashion or form and what the best way of doing that is. And we're also going to be evaluating on an ongoing basis. So it doesn't stop here. We're going to just continue to do that. So we appreciate your support in bringing us this far. We're very excited about the changes that we've made, and we hope to continue to see them building. So thanks.
All right. Well, thank you very much for that, Cindy and Kara and Anam, who I know will be put on the spot in a few minutes, I'm sure. I will speak about my bus experience, and it really was a good experience. It's certainly a comfortable ride. It's not like, you know, the days of the LTC when I was, you know, 8 years old going from Westmount to the Y in London. It's very comfortable and it's accessible. The driver was great. And I was really pleased because there's 2 stops in London or in Lucan, excuse me. So I got on here at the arena and somebody did get on at the next stop in Lucan, and she was headed to Fanshawe, and she's a regular user of the system and was quite positive about her experience. And I think actually you guys interviewed her after, you know, for a social media post. And then when we picked up Ina in Alderton, and that spot is by the library. So anybody, you know, that uses the medical center there could access that quite easily. But there was somebody that gone on with Ina, and she works at the bulk barn. And again, she uses the bus quite regularly to get to work. And I asked her about the schedule and how it worked with return. And she said, well, sometimes it doesn't. But she said, even if it means only somebody's coming to get me once and the car is only going into London once, that's making a huge difference as well. So, you know, and these are regular riders. They weren't just one off. So as I say, the route seemed to really make sense. It didn't take any time at all. And yeah, I was at Masonville in no time. So if you know, are looking to spend some time and maybe spread your retail dollars somewhere else, you know, try taking the bus. It would be great. So with that, are there any questions or comments? Councillor Westman.
Yeah, so I got a question. This is great. I mean, I know it's something that's kind of a living thing. It's growing as you go. Just wondering about like opportunities for students and after-school programs and things like that, where they can get transportation, out of the smaller communities. Also, the expansion into some of the, we have 3 settlement areas in Lucan, Lucan and Granton. I noticed the St. Mary's route. I'm wondering if, if you had a demand, if there was somebody asking for service, could that reroute through Granton on the way to St. Mary's, those sort of things. Now the student after school program, I'm wondering about that too. I mean, there may be a demand there, and I don't know if there's any kind of conversation going on with the Thames Valley District School Board, if there's any outreach there, if there's somebody, that they can talk to there to kind of see, is there a demand? Is there something that we could maybe add to the mix? And then the next question is student and senior rates. I know it's a lower rate, but if you, $5 a trip, $10, it does add up if you're doing it regularly. For some struggling families, it could be an issue. I'm just wondering if there's any penchant for like a discounted rate for seniors or for students or whatever. Those are lots to unpack there, but I just had a few thoughts on it. Thank you.
I can start and then you can jump in, Kara, through the mayor to the councillor. In terms of Thames Valley District School Board, so we haven't necessarily reached out directly to them, but we're always open to conversations. And we're always looking for improving our service and continually evaluating. And we do surveys, talk to community groups. Anam was just with a community group last week who was very interested and is already asked for posters and putting them up across the county. So definitely we can take that back and have a conversation and see if there is any uptake from Thames Valley District School Board and if there is any, I guess, demand and need. The second thing you asked about monthly bus passes. So yes, we have been asked a little bit about monthly bus passes. Since we kind of relaunched, we want to see at least for the next few months how things are going, how many people are taking it. And again, we'll reach out and have conversations with individuals and do again surveys and conversations. So definitely we may look into doing some kind of monthly pass. We definitely heard that for seniors and definitely for students, because now we do know there's a lot of individuals that are going to get on to go to Fanshawe or Western. Did I answer all of them or?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's not just home secretary.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
That may not be great at the end of the school day, there might be later going on. I'm just wondering, if this is strong as the band or something.
Yes, absolutely. And when we stop in Arva, that's very close to Medway, actually. Walking distance actually to Medway. So we definitely will take that back and we'll have a conversation with Thames Valley District School Board. I work with them quite often because I also have childcare services. So definitely we will do that.
I think also Councillor Russman asked about maybe some communication, maybe with the Perth bus and bringing that over Granton Way. Because I think it does come right through Prospect Hill. So that would be a discussion with Perth.
So to the warden, to the councillor, definitely. Anum is actually having great conversations with all of our neighboring community transportation services. And here in Perth, PC Connect are definitely ones that we're talking to. So we will continue those conversations and take that conversation back to them.
Councillor Regan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you. Very good presentation. So just have a couple of just two comments really. And you mentioned something about a customer survey. So when I was looking at your slides about how you can help in spreading the word, I'm just wondering if that's something that we've done in here with Lucan and Biddulph, the customer survey or a community survey about the need and what people want. And the reason I'm saying that is that, and I didn't see it here with how to spread the word, but I'm thinking with those kinds of surveys, it builds awareness, first of all. And secondly, it makes people part of the process, and nothing says engagement by getting people involved in it. So engagement, and then you've got more people and the program is very successful. I think I see people when I was walking the other day and I see people at the bus stops. I just think this is just great. Like it's a $5 trip there and back into town, into London. So it's wonderful. So that was just a comment about just whether that survey would be something that would allow for involvement and awareness and then later on engagement. The other thing too is like with the different demographic that we've got in Lucan, Biddulph with the Fanshawe and kids going to Fanshawe and Western. I mean, it means so much, I think, to families. I don't know how many families we have, but families that are now having kids going to Fanshawe Western, they've got this service to go into town. Everybody knows what it costs to go to university. And of course, they're staving off those costs and trying to find a place in London to stay. So I think I just wanted to comment. I just thought that was just a really brilliant move to just, let's get them to Fanshawe, let's get them to Western. So, and again, that's something that I think we really need. And that's something that, I mean, the demographic would support that here. So that's all I wanted to do. Thank you very much.
Did you have a comment, Anam?
I just want to add that we are going to Fanshawe College. I'm working with them right now. I will be there for orientation week. We will be part of their magazine, their handouts and all. So they did tell me that this year after the pandemic, they'll have full admission. So we're hoping our ridership will go up, and my next step would be Western University as well. So we are targeting the students, and we're hoping that, that affects ridership this year.
Thank you very much.
Okay, any other comments or questions? Deputy Mayor Manders.
Yeah, glad to see this, glad to see the pilot being extended, but it just, obviously pilot means revenue and tracking. So what would be the goal at the end of the pilot to be percentage of revenue to expense? So that it's not created at the end of the pilot. So I assume right now you have a goal of revenue to expense, and nor do what I feel this would be funded by the riders at all. Like it would need to be a user, a joint thing, but I'm just curious what, just so that I know in 2 years if it was successful from your goal.
I'm giving her the hard one.
Through you, Mayor, it's a very difficult question because at this point it has been really 100% funded by the province of Ontario. And so really I don't know that there is a magic number at this point. Really, it's a matter of there's a lot of advocacy. No public transportation system can exist without some kind of public dollars going to it. And at this point, the province of Ontario has really said that, with the extension 2025 is going to be the end. And do you have a sense of percentages?
Yeah, again, I'm actually users then. This is a pilot. Users then, again, I feel there'll need to be municipal dollars put into this if successful, but a pilot to me is there must be a goal of users at the end so that you go, okay, this is not sustainable because there wasn't enough users. The municipalities that will definitely have to offset that. I understand that, but I'm just curious of what the goal is. So at the end of the pilot, it's not created at the end of the pilot.
Through the mayor to the councillors. Actually, when we had IBI group come and do that community needs assessment, they also looked at our current community transportation. And that's how we got these new routes, because they looked at the number of riders. They looked at how much it would cost to run that. So that's kind of way we made the major shift. And we thought we still had a couple of years to be able to work through that, to really get individuals on the bus, to get comfortable using the bus. And then we could go out there and either advocate again with the provincial government. They have referred us to, it's called transportation gas tax. I'm not sure if that's going to be enough, but we're all in the same position. So there's a number of these community transportation. So I definitely think we still need some time to advocate to our provincial government. COVID has taken a while for us to get past that. And it wasn't just a couple years and here we are. So we do really need a bit more time to get individuals used to using transit. And then we need to talk about the great stories that we have here in the county. We have individuals that are able to go to post-secondary, whether it's college or university. We have a number of people being able to get jobs, and we had a few examples of that as well. And then as Kara nicely pointed out, we talked about medical appointments and even that social. And if I think of Ontario Works, getting individuals either to employment or doing other social activities. So there's so much wealth that's involved in community transportation. I think in these couple years, we really want to be able to tell our story and really be able to go after that kind of funding that we need.
One more time. Again, I'd even accept if you were to say, you know what, it costs $3 million with no funding. And we'd expect the county and municipalities put in 1.5 million. Again, I'm sorry, to me, again, what's my question? Again, hopefully if there isn't funding, that is the question I hope can be answered eventually for your pilot. Again, is we got to get the word out, we got to get the users using it, but there's going to be a high dollar of government money used still to make this happen, which again, I'm fine with, but what I'm not fine with is that this is a pilot. And to me, that's a key part of the pilot. That's great, everything you said, and I agree with everything you said. So, yeah.
So through you, Mayor, we will be working on that more diligently to figure out with the new route. Because this route is new and because it allows us access to that 2,700 more passengers, we have no sense, expectation quite yet as to what the ridership will be on this particular route. We know where our ridership was flawed in our other routes that were coming in, thus the adjustment. So we really do need to do that work, and we need to do that work in this next probably 6 months or so as the school gets passed to its full time. So we will be coming up with those ridership numbers to see what makes sense in terms of sustainability, but it's too early. Unfortunately, it seems like we're years down the road, but there's been such an upheaval with COVID. And because we have shifted these routes, we need to come up with new numbers, and they will be high in terms of, unfortunately, the public dollars. All transportation systems rely heavily on that, but we will be coming up with new goals in terms of what we're expecting from these two new routes. It's too much in infancy, and we wanted to come and talk to you at this point because this is sort of our soft launch. We chose to launch at this time of year when the schools weren't open yet to see if we could garner some other ridership from the general populace and not rely only on what was coming out of the schools. We can tell you, very clearly that the major ridership that was coming from the Woodstock route was coming to go to Fanshawe and things like that. So we really want to evaluate, but we will have those harder numbers for you.
I would never expect him. My question is not to know what the numbers are going to be even at the end of the pilot, what numbers, again, that, total numbers of revenue to cost, it would be considered successful, or again, is it sustainable, or to your point, I guess you've somewhat answered it there, was that, what if Lucan's not going to support it, then all of a sudden this chart maybe looks like London, Arva, Alberton, potentially. Again, I don't know you. But again, that's all I was wondering, was it just, again, would never expect you to know that now. You should know that now. There's going to be lots of campaigning, but at the end of the pilot, those are the facts. The success of putting this out there. So again, the numbers of people using it was, what is that deemed as success? That's, from all the campaigning we did in that. It doesn't sound like you're there yet. Not to know it. I don't expect you to know. What I'm wondering is to move it forward at the end of it. So that's,
And through you, Mayor, to the councillor, that's exactly what we need to come up with.
To the mayor, to the councillor, we're also going to be working with local businesses to see if there's any kind of partnership we can do with businesses, and hopefully between maybe gas tax, other kind of funding, businesses, and then riders. So we're trying to look at it really fulsome and strategic on how we go forward, but we'll definitely look at all the things that you asked about and come back at a future meeting.
Okay. Any other question? Councillor Hodgins.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, through you. Thank you for the presentation. So with it being a pilot program and we're trying these new things, I think data is going to be super important. So can you share your ridership data to date, like maybe the annual passenger numbers, or where they're
So we are supposed to get our ridership data from Wago like this month, because we just launched the routes May 24th. We're based on what I've been seeing, our ridership has seemed to be the same after we launch, which is a miracle, because usually what happens is when you launch new routes, you basically have no ridership. But I've been on the buses and the drivers have been telling me that they're seeing same kind of ridership continue, which is a great story. So once I have the data, I will share it with the council. Again, it was only launched May 24th, so I don't have data on me, but that's why we will be scheduling another presentation, like in a few months from now. We will be bringing back some data on revenue. It's going to be very difficult to project how much revenue we will be anticipating from obviously the different sources, because ridership right now is all up in the air, given the fact that we've launched these new routes. We had initially launched these routes during the pandemic, so that's not a good reflection on ridership. And we're trying to not have our data so biased. Now that we're out of COVID and we've relaunched these routes, we have exposed the transit system to new populations. We're trying to see what will these changes bring about, how our data is going to be affected. Hopefully in a few months from now, we'll have some data that we can reflect on and we can project out. And by the end of the pilot, obviously we will have to know, because like Kara and Cindy mentioned, that the province has said that they might not be continuing this pilot, right? And we will have to be looking at gas tax funding for this. So we have reached out to them as well. They will be providing us their estimates, and we will be going out to businesses. We will be reaching out to municipalities. We'll be coming back with those numbers, because without the numbers, we have to set the expectations, right? So and as for the ridership data, hopefully in a few months, we'll come back with actual data as well.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, recognizing this new route structures new, do we have ridership data from previous years of the program?
Yes, we do. So I can share that with the council if you want after the meeting. I just don't have it on me right now, but yes, we do. We've been compiling that, and a lot of that is what we took into consideration to make the changes. So we had the ridership data and we had the report from IBI consultants. So both of those were looked at in order to make these changes. So that data is available. Actually, the report from IBI we will be publishing that very soon as well. So will have finance numbers in there, and I'll have some projections for ridership too. But a lot of those projections have been based on, speculations. But hopefully in a few months, when we actually have ridership data, we can base our projections on real data.
Okay, thank you for that. Still on the data question. So is it just passenger numbers that are being collected, or is there additional data being collected? I know we've asked previously when we had the Huron Shores delegation about whether there's any demographic information that's collected, or is there any other data that's being collected through this, and how's it being collected?
That's a great question. So until now, everything was manually being collected by Wago's drivers. That's exactly why we're launching this app. Data is very important to us. So using this app, we'll be able to get demographic data. We'll be able to get information on where the people are getting on, where are they intending to get off. So not only stops, hopefully we'll be able to capture that final destinations. Obviously demographic, because they'll be creating profiles on this app. And going back to, we were talking about passes and stuff. So I just want to also note that payment is another thing. Right now, people are able to pay with cash and do debit and credit. But with this app, we should be able to do passes, right? Because they're able to go online and they can purchase passes through these apps, and there will be a credit system too. So you can actually have a balance on our app, and you're able to use that too. So the app will give us that, and also the data that we are looking for. And hopefully if all works, then we'll be not doing manual entries. Everything will be done automatically. Yeah, sure.
Okay, thank you. I went back and watched IBI's presentation to the county in April. So post 2025, once the funding ends, and it sounds like that's a certainty that there's not going to be any more grant funding. It's going to be a combination of gas tax, a little bit of revenue from ridership, and then the municipal portion or the county portion that gets divvied out. But through that presentation, I think IBI's recommendation ultimately was a little bit different system than what we're operating currently. It had, I think it was a line going to Strathroy, and then one to, I'm not sure if it's Woodstock or just Dorchester, but are we, with the route that's set up right now, is that going to be in place for the next year and a half or until 2025? Or are we looking at any hybrid pilots during this pilot term?
So through the mayor to the councillor, our expectation at this point, given this change and the newness of it and the time frame left, is that for the most part, these routes will remain unchanged with maybe a minor tweak here or there. As you may know, there is a pilot project that actually runs a system through Sarnia, through Strathroy, through Comoca, and then into the city of London. So that is why we're not looking at that proposed route that would take a bus system through that, as there's another one. But as we said in the presentation, and with ANUM's assistance, we are having tremendous conversations with all of the other regional partners to look at what the future may hold. And I would say that a future for a system in Middlesex County will be a combination of looking at some of those other systems combined, because we do have other dollars and other municipalities that are looking at bringing traffic through our communities. And so we will be having those conversations to look at what is the best system. But we are at this point looking at what is the success of these new routes and the access to the services and the individuals that require them. And this was the best solution that we came to.
Okay, and yeah, glad you touched on the coordination with all the neighbors, because I think IVI stressed the importance of that and the governance and coordination constraints and how that may really affect the success of the program or whether it proceeds. So can you just, I guess, who are the neighboring regional transit stakeholders that we're coordinating with? And are we coordinating at all with LTC? Since we're kind of going into a transit hub there, is there any discussions about, it's going from system to system and how those are going to integrate? So who are we coordinating with and how's that going?
So I'll touch on some of this and then we'll jump in, because there's a lot of different partners doing a lot of different things, which is a blessing and a curse a little bit to this whole system. So there's certainly engagement with Perth, there's engagement with Lambton Shores and Huron. There's engagement with the Strathroy system, which is the one from Sarnia. There's engagement with the system that comes from Tillsonburg as well. SCORE, so South Central Ontario region, that group has been bringing together the partners particular to that region and a little bit outside of that as well to have conversations. But it is our intention to also put together a community forum of all of these partners in a very formalized way over the course of the next year, not waiting until the final year, but in the next year, probably I anticipate probably in the springtime, to really have some hard conversations to look at the intersection of every one of these pilot projects. You have to appreciate the fact that the province really put out a call for a very particular type of intercommunity transit system. And in order to access those dollars, you really needed to be slotting into their request. Which is a great way to start the ball rolling if you speak and see what may or may not work. And to the benefit of the province, when we did our information and Cindy and I met with them to have a conversation, they were very open to the changes that we were proposing and us looking at these new routes. So we're hopeful that they will continue to come to the table. Obviously no promise of future funding at this point, but we're hoping they'll continue to come to the table and hear what is and what is not working with the pilots and see if there may be an opportunity going forward for, a better system. So we're going to put our emphasis towards that. We've made that commitment in terms of bringing together those players, and we're going to continue to do so. And did I miss any players? Okay.
Was there any coordination with LTC or the London Transit Commission?
Yes.
Well, I have been in contact with LTC. Obviously, we are using their bus stop, so we cannot be having our bus stop there without really coordinating with them. And a lot of these conversations will now take place now that we've launched these routes. And I have reached out to all of them, all of the ones Kara has mentioned. Hopefully, in and Cindy and Kara also mentioned the forum that we are hoping to hold at the county. Once we have some ridership data, we all can sit together and we can go over all of our ridership data. And I think, as Kara mentioned, when we did mention to the province that we are making these changes, they did mention that this is exactly what they want us to do. The pilot is there so that we can test what works and what doesn't work. And that's exactly what we did. For 2.5 years, we kept a stable system. So we were able to see what has worked and what hasn't. Because if we had made too many changes in the past 2.5 years, we wouldn't have known what we've learned today. So this is one of the reasons why the pilot is there. Is not just to understand what the revenue and ridership is, also what does your community want? Because not until you implement it, you don't know that. So I think we're in a very good stage today. We still have 1.5 years to go. Seems like these routes are working. We'll only know that in a few months when we have our ridership data, and hopefully we'll have a positive story to bring at that point. And we will take this data back to the SCORE team. We have our monthly quarter meetings with them. Perth County, Huron Shores, Norfolk, Tillsonburg, we're all on that committee. We all get together, we talk about all the changes we're making. But I think now we're in a stage where we're actually going to sit down and we're going to discuss the revenue part and the ridership part, like what has worked, what hasn't worked, and where do we go to get the money.
Okay, thank you very much for all the answers, and looking forward to seeing how it goes and wishing this program success over the next 1.5 years, and looking forward to seeing some data as well. Thank you.
Might just jump in, and I'm glad, Kara, that you brought up about how prescribed the pilot was. I had that actually in my notes, because when it was introduced, there really wasn't a lot of creativity in what municipalities that were applying for this funding were able to do. And so some of the things that you might think in a rural, because public transportation in a rural setting is vastly different than public transportation in an urban setting. And what they're trying to prescribe for us to do, may not work, may not be the answer. I think IBI is, they brought up the on-demand sort of thing, but that was not an option for us to roll out. So this is what we've got, and we're learning from it. And I don't like to keep using COVID as an excuse, but really in this case, it was detrimental to any community that was rolling out public transportation in 2020, because, you're rolling out public transportation at the same time you're telling your residents not to gather, not to get in close quarters with people. And we're on a bus, that is tight. We don't have the luxury of the double buses that the LTC does. And again, we were handcuffed. We couldn't advertise. So how do you get people on the bus when you can't advertise? And that went on for a good year. So while data was collected, was it really realistic data? So I think, they've learned a lot since things have opened up. And I think what we've got today is actually a system where information can be gathered, because that is what the province is going to want. They're going to want to hear what worked, what didn't work, and what are you going to do going forward? Because the only way that they're going to come to the table, we have any hope of coming to the table with money beyond what they have said we need to look at, is if we have data that supports how we want to run this thing going forward. So I really think, I know that the team has worked really hard in the last 6 to 9 months on what we've got today. I think, as I say, the conversations that will happen with the province for the next 1.5 years will be driven by the data that's collected. And it was mentioned about SCORE, and of course, they can advocate on kind of the broader region. Because, it's not just Middlesex County that's got this pilot project. It's not just Strathroy Caradoc that's got this pilot project, or Huron Shores. It's right across the province. And so you've got SCORE that's collecting data from everywhere. And again, that'll be ammunition, because we'll all be in the same boat looking for and if they think that there's enough money from the transportation gas tax to look after all of these systems across the province is not, like, they're not prepared for the requests coming. So I think all the data that's coming from everybody will certainly back up the requests coming, and we'll be able to grow a system that, may not look like what it looks like today, but will work for our communities. Councillor Regan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. If I may, just to your point about the fact that public transportation in an urban setting is a different paradigm than transportation in a rural setting. And just having said that, I'm wondering, when you talked about this forum and being a member of the Community Economic Development Committee, I'm just wondering if we've reached out to them, because there's a lot of, in our committee, there's a lot of talent. There's a lot of people that are business people. They might be able to offer something, because each of these communities are very unique with respect. I want this to work. So I'm just wondering if we can reach out, or if you have reached out, because they've got some different insights. So I didn't know if that was part of that forum that was going to be formed to get information about communities. Because I mean, you got to be able, it's got to be specific. I mean, the needs of Alberton are going to be different than the needs of Lucan Biddulph. So I'm just wondering, I'm just offering that as perhaps just just a different insight. People who have other stakeholders or businesses in the community. Thank you. Thanks.
Through you, Mayor, I think that's excellent that you bring up that point, Councillor, and we certainly want all voices to be heard at the table. We don't want this to be, a solely financially driven, conversation, or solely politically driven conversation. This is a community conversation. And so now that we've established and done our soft launch, I know that ANUM is going to be working with all community groups to look at every facet of talking to those stakeholders, because these are new stakeholders along this route, right? That we haven't had those in-depth conversations with. So that's going to be a big part of the next few months. And we haven't figured out what that forum looks like physically yet. But it's a good thought to put in our heads of how could we integrate that information, whether it's gathering it in advance or inviting all of those stakeholders to the table on the day of. We'll give some real thought to how we do that, but we certainly want those voices to be heard and that information to be brought to that forum.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
All right. Any other questions or comments from council? Okay, thank you very much for joining us. It was great to see you in this council chamber. But no, in all seriousness, thank you for coming out. Appreciate being in person for sure. And I know that, our residents, I would encourage anybody that's watching to tell their neighbors to watch this part of the council meeting, because I think our residents can learn a lot about the community transportation program that is right at their doorstep. So thank you very much. Okay, and with that, I would ask for a mover and a seconder to receive that report and presentation for information. Councillor Hodgins and Deputy Mayor Manders. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you very much. Okay, on to the minutes. We've got the minutes from June 20th in front of us. And I would ask if there's nothing that needs to be amended or added, that I get a mover and a seconder to approve those minutes as circulated. Councillor Regan and Deputy Mayor Manders. All in favor? And that's carried. On to business arising. There was one item that was added, and that was the e-scooter discussion. Was there anything else that council wanted added to business arising? Councillor Hodgins.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Just one item. I think when we talked about the renewal of the bylaw contract, we're gonna have, I think, quarterly reports come back on bylaw activity. So I'm not sure if it's appropriate to add that to this list, maybe until we get our first report back, just to keep it on the radar. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Is there anything else that council would like to see on business rising? Okay, on to correspondence then. And we've pulled one item from the list of correspondence that was received. And this is an annual request that comes to us from Villages United for the use of the park and the pavilion and the kitchen area for their vacation Bible camp. That is going on this week, and Mr. Herbert, who wrote the letter, has indicated that he will do a better job next year in getting the request to us before the camp goes on. But I believe we have not had a concern in the past with honoring this request. So I would look to council if there is concern, and if not, then there is a recommended motion in front of us that council directs staff to approve the request of Villages United to donate the rental fees required for the Granton Pavilion in order to operate the Vacation Bible Camp. A mover and a seconder for that, please. Councillor Westman and Councillor Regan. And I think it was noted in there, but this camp really does take kids from all over Lucan Biddulph. So it is an accessible camp for all. Councillor Westman?
Yeah, I got a bit of a report on the numbers. They got really good numbers this year. It was 75 or 80 kids altogether. It was really good.
That's good. That's excellent. So that motion was moved by Councillor Westman and seconded by Councillor Regan. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you very much for that. And then back to the list. Was there any notes that we've received in the last few weeks that council wanted to speak to? Councillor Regan.
If I may, Madam Mayor, I just wanted to speak to resolution on the Highway Traffic Act Amendments number 5. And it's the city of Woodstock. And I'm just thinking forward thinking for maybe in the next 2 or 3 years. I know we're not in a position to buy any of these, the automated speed enforcement systems. However, there is a law that basically says they're restricted as to where people can put them. And I'm just thinking, keeping in line with our own traffic management plan, what we've been moving forward with over the last year or so, I would like to ask that we make a resolution to support this letter that's being sent to Minister or the Honorable Carolyn Mulroney to actually have that bylaw or the law changed where it says that municipalities can in fact put these anywhere they want. And again, I know we're not in a position to get them at this point, but I think with our growing population, pedestrian vehicle traffic, the stuff that we're doing now with respect to traffic calming and those other sorts of things. And again, it's just another tool. If we could, this happens, another tool for us down the road, maybe 2 years from now. But I just thought we could, and I thought the wording was fine, except we could just put in Lucan Biddulph instead of the city of Woodstock.
Okay.
So I'm asking for support for that.
Any comments or to that? So do you want the same motion that, but obviously personalized for Lucan Biddulph, or do you just want a motion to support the resolution from the city of Woodstock?
I would, the letter, we'd have a letter and just change it and just put our name in it.
So you want a full, okay.
The full, yes, sorry, yes.
Okay.
Please.
So then that would be brought back at the August meeting. Okay.
Yes, please.
Okay. Were there any other items of correspondence received that council wanted to speak to? Okay, then can I get a mover and a seconder to receive those items of correspondence for information? Councillor Hodgins and Councillor Regan. All in favor? And that's carried. On to committee reports. Blue Water.
Yeah, we didn't have a meeting. There was notes there. They were late sending them, so they're just added. They were late, I believe, sending them out. But as it states there, the main highlight was just that it's nice to see the recycling pricing coming up. Right now, it's at what we budgeted our where we did our budget pricing. So it's nice to see that up. And again, July 1st, there was, I believe, Ottawa, Toronto, and certain municipalities started the vendor or the producer responsibility recycling. So it'll be interesting to watch that evolve. So,
Okay, any questions on Blue Water? Okay, I do not have anything from Lake Huron. There's no update from the fire. Oh, CEDC is next. Yes, that's right. Thank you. Has that always been there? In that
Yes, it
order?
has, Madam Mayor.
Well, I know it's always been there. I just don't remember it being in that order. Okay, CEDC, Councillor Reed.
Oh, that's all right. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I do have a report for council tonight from our June 28th meeting. The minutes are attached. So I'll just touch on the highlights. There was a discussion on the grant and budget discussion with respect to the street name sign renewal project. We are moving forward with that, and that will be taking place between Main Street, Main and William and Main to Market. And there's plans to expand this program in 2024. There's a Environics report that came back, which is a demographic report. So we will be releasing that, but that was, I guess it was myself that suggested. It's somewhat convoluted and a little bit confusing on some of the sections. So I have asked, or the committee did ask, that if we could get an executive summary or an abstract with that. So when we do distribute it to people, and we want to put it to people in the business community, so that there's just basically a summary, just so it's a little easier for people to understand, and they can actually use the data. Then we received an update on the projects list, things that we've been working on, and our next meeting is July 25th. And that's my report.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions for Councillor Regan? Okay, so there still isn't anything from Lake Huron, and I don't believe there's any updates from the fire boards. ABCA.
Just briefly on June 27th, I met with the water response team for an annual meeting, and you may have seen in the correspondence that the Sauble Bayfield Conservation Authority issued a low water advisory. So they monitor monthly precipitation values and stream flows, and if they are below a certain percentage threshold of the 1 month or 3 month averages, they declare these low water advisories. So it was a drier than usual spring with only 50 to 70% of the 3 month normal rainfall. That's from April through to June. So just based on the precipitation values, the low water advisory was declared, and the ABCA encourages residents within the watershed to try to conserve 10% of their water usage. And if it remains dry and we go into a level 2 low water level advisory, then that's when you would see notices go out to municipalities and watering bans go into effect. But right now, just the level 1.
Okay, thank you for that. Any questions for Councillor Hodgins? Okay, Parks and Rec, Councillor Regan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The minutes are attached for the June 21st meeting, and just some of the highlights. There was a report on the Trails Committee. I guess the next field trip is a meeting. The next field trip is going to be or next meeting is going to be a field trip to view potential trails. That's exciting. Abby noted that the Parks and Rec Department was successful with Learning and Lucan Senior Workshop Grant, what they're moving forward to. The deputy mayor and I are very excited about that because apparently we're taking a cooking class. So
I don't know about the we, I said I was.
okay. He just doesn't listen. That says, okay, well, it is we. There was a construction and pool update, but as we know, both are construction update, pool update, and we both know that now we are past that and we are operational. Parks and Rec Master Plan was awarded to Monteith Brown, and it was indicated that the Pratt Committee might be asked to help gather information for that. There's also a report on the All Wheels Park that staff are applying for a $150,000 grant for the All Wheels Park that's slated for Elm Street, and the new booking system, Perfect Mind, is up and running, and I hear it's working well. And our next meeting is August 24th.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
When's this cooking class that we can all sit and watch? Any questions for Councillor Regan on Parks and Rec? Okay, moving on to staff reports. Ron.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The first report before council tonight is CAO number 10, 2023. It's regarding alternative work arrangements. Certainly discussions surrounding these types of arrangements have been front and center to all of our recent conferences. And there's been a number of articles across municipal world and the newspapers themselves. So the hope in proceeding with this type of policy is to basically enhance our workplace environment. So it's got to do with managing your employees, dealing with employee retention issues. Touch wood, we've been very fortunate here. When we lose an employee, there is a definite cost because every employee that we have here, we invest heavily in their education and their training, and there's a cost if you lose that knowledge and that person. So we're talking about work-life balance issues, improving employee mental health, etc. We've currently got 2 people in the administration that are under alternative work arrangements. It seems to be working well. One has been under that arrangement for a number of months, and the second one probably about 2 months now. So it seems to be working well. Lots of good comments coming back. These alternative work arrangements can mean many different things and depends largely on the employee, their position within the municipality, and where they physically work. Obviously, the Public Works Department, their needs are very different than the Parks and Recreation employee needs. And both of those are quite different than administration itself. So it's rather difficult to come up with a policy that covers all 3. So I think what we've tried to do with this policy, with the wording of the policy, is to basically empower the managers to look after their subordinates. The CAO will look after the managers, and the mayor will look after any arrangements for the CAO. And again, we talked a little bit about what that means. Does that mean for some people they may like to work a compressed week? So whether that means 1 day off, they work 4 days a week versus 5, they compress their work hours into that four days. Is that 1 day a week? Is that 1 day every other week? Is that is that a shift in the work hours to accommodate things like childcare? So maybe they come in work later and they work later, or vice versa. Those work hours are just simply adjusted. So I think one of the key goals here is that we need to maintain our level of service. At the end of the day, service can't suffer because of this, and it can't cost the taxpayer more by going through this process. So I think with those goals in mind, I think the wording that we have in the policy is such that we can do this, and we will have to reevaluate this on semi-regular basis. I think this is a trial period. It's important that this is a trial period. We're going to try this. We are not the first to try it. I'm sure we're not going to be the last. But I do believe we are one of the first in the county. I think Thames Center has some version of this to go through. A lot of my fellow CAOs are talking about this, but everybody seems to be hesitant. Who wants to go first, kind of thing. So I put this draft before council, and I would welcome any comments to it. Again, I do think this is a progressive move, and I do think this is a worthwhile policy. So, Madam Mayor, happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Ron. I want to say thank you for the work put into it. It hasn't been easy, but I think what you've got is certainly a good starting point. It's no secret, I've been a big fan of this and looking at how we can bring this sort of alternative work arrangement into Lucan Biddulph. You touched on it, but you know, I think there's no secret that our sector is going through a lot of changes, and there's a lot of people moving and coming into our sector, and there's a lot of competition for great employees, and being able to have this kind of policy, I think, is a benefit, and it makes it attractive for a workplace. If you haven't already seen it, there was an article in the latest edition of Municipal World about 4-day work weeks in, again, they're calling them pilots, but it's in municipalities, you know, not just in Ontario, but across the country. And so I would encourage you to read that because certainly the communities that have entered into a pilot into this are seeing great success. And it's just, you might find interest in just hearing about some other experiences from some other communities. So with that, any other or any comment or questions from council? Councillor Regan, and then.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just my question for Ron. I agree with you. I think it's something that we need to do. And we like to be progressive in Lucan Biddulph, I know, but I'm just wondering, how do we guarantee that we maintain the level of service? Because I think we have a very high level of service. I really do. And I see things, you know, things get done right away. Things get done well. I just want to make sure that we just maintain that level of service. And having said that, thinking about this building, thinking about Parks and Rec, thinking about public works, they're all have different types of, demands on them. So each one of these plans that the managers have has to be reflective of the type of work. So I guess as a second to that, when you're thinking about, is it possible to do that in every of our, I know we're a small municipality, but is it possible to do that in the Parks and Rec department? Is it possible to do that in, and my concern is that if it is, how do we monitor and measure that level of service that stays the same? That would be a concern of mine. Thank you.
So good question through you, Madam Mayor. I think I can answer that such that as your manager, as managers, senior managers, it's our responsibility to make sure that those service levels are met. And like I said earlier, our goal is to not lower the bar on service levels. We have to maintain. I think we have a very good reputation for service here. We want to maintain that reputation. And I think it's we call this a pilot project. It's a work in progress. We want to make sure that we continue to do that. So we'll continuously monitor that to make sure. One of the other important aspects is that we can't get into a situation where one person's off, for example, and the department is not covered, and suddenly something happens, say it's in the Public Works Department, we have a water main break or something like that. We can't, or we don't want to be in a position where we have to pay overtime because that person's already done, the minimum number of hours in the week. So it's those types of situations that we're going to have to be very careful, and we're going to have to monitor as we go. That's not to say that if we had a water main break right now, for example, we're paying overtime because nobody's working at this point in time. So every situation is going to be different, and I think we as managers have to keep our eyes on that to make sure that we maintain service levels and that our costs don't go up because of these alternative work arrangements.
Thank you. No, I agree with the mayor. The alternative work arrangements, that goes a long way for mental health, work-life balance, 100% behind that. Again, that would be my one concern, but I think the answer was it helped me. So thank you. Thanks, Madam Mayor.
Maybe just one more comment, and every position is different. For example, let's use my position. I'll speak about me personally. I can't see a situation where I can work 4 days a week. It's just not, it's not feasible. I get too many emails, phone calls, questions. The best case scenario for me would be, possibly working 1 day a week from home, but I don't even think I can get to a standard where it's like every Wednesday, because my schedule doesn't necessarily dovetail with, other lower tier CAOs. And if they have a meeting on a Wednesday, So it's very difficult to sort of pigeonhole and stick with us with a schedule. You know, I do think there are municipalities out there. I'm thinking of Zora in particular. I think so maybe over time, people get used to that and know that. But at this point in time, I just don't see that happening for me. You know, and again, every position is different. And Public Works, for example, wintertime is vastly different than summertime activities. I think, you know, Parks and Rec, the same thing. You know, they've got winter activities and they've got summer activities and they have busy times in both. So it's you know, it's incumbent upon the managers to look after that. And like I said, make sure that service levels remain, our reputation. And like I said, I think we have a good reputation for helping people and making sure that our service levels are up there. We want to maintain that. And we have to ensure that it's not going to cost the municipality and the taxpayer more money.
Right. Thank you very much. Thanks.
Okay, Councillor Hodgins.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I think it's a great idea to bring this forward, and I think the policy is very well written. I don't have any comments on it. I just think it looks good. The only comment I do have is that I see tonight we're just receiving this for information, so this will come back to council. But when we do, if we do adopt this policy, then I think it'd be helpful, certainly for council, to bring back a report after some time, after 3 or 4 months or whatever the right amount of time would be, just as a status update to us for us to understand how many staff are participating and how things are going, you know, the good and the bad, and like further to Councillor Regan's comment about maintaining the level of service that we have here. Yeah, but I think the policy looks great. Thanks.
Okay, thank you for those comments. Any other comments or questions for Ron on this? Yeah.
Just one further comment, if I may, Madam Mayor. The two existing employees who are under that compressed work week speak quite highly about the program. They said it's made a world of difference to them, so that's encouraging. And we have been able to, you know, touch wood so far. We haven't seen any wrinkles in that type of a schedule. But again, it depends on the person and the person's role within the municipality. So again, not everybody can do it. And that's going to be our challenge as managers, is to, you know, if somebody wants it and yet we as a manager see a downside to being able to allow that individual to do it, then that's a call that we as managers have to make.
So further to what Councillor Hodgins said, so we're receiving this for information. So when are we anticipating that it come back for formal adoption?
So through you, Madam Mayor, the 3 months might not be long enough. I'm thinking probably 6 months would be a better indication, because it's going to take some time for managers to figure out who wants it. Number one, what does that look like for each person? So I'm thinking probably a 6-month report. Is that?
That would be fine, but that wasn't my question.
Oh, sorry.
But I think 6 months, makes sense. My question was, we're receiving this for information. When is it coming back to council for formal adoption?
Well, if everybody's happy with the wording, you can adopt it as it is today if you want. Otherwise, it will come back at the next meeting.
Okay, so with that in mind, I would look to council. The recommended motion is just to receive it for information, but I would look to council if you're comfortable. Do you want to look at the policy for a month? Are you happy with the wording, or happy to amend the motion to include adopting the policy? And I would look to council for that direction. Councillor West.
Yeah, I have no problem adopting this at this point. I mean, I have confidence that our managers can manage this very well. So.
Councillor Regan.
Yeah, I would support Councillor Westman's.
Okay, so Councillor Westman, you want to make that amended motion so that council receive and adopt?
Yes.
Yes.
Is that how it should read? The report number and then the corresponding policy. So that's moved by Councillor Westman. Know this. And it's seconded by Councillor Regan. Is there any further discussion on that motion on the floor? With that, all in favor? And that's carried. Okay. If you want to continue on, Ron.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The second report for the council tonight is the health and safety policies. It's CAO-11-2023. And again, many thanks to, I feel like I shouldn't be the one presenting the report. Julie has done an outstanding job on this, and same with Tina. So thank you very much to those two ladies. They put a ton of work into this. We have been working with OSG. So OSG has been working diligently with Julie to come up with these recommended policies. And you can see the recommended motion before council tonight is that the council adopt the following policies: 300-01, which is the health and safety policy statement; 300-02, which are the roles and responsibilities policy; and finally 101-01-2023, the respect in the workplace violence and harassment policy. And further to that council repeal the following policies: 100-35, which was the safe practices policy; policy 100-39, health and safety policy statement; and finally the former respect in the workplace one. So these are updated policies, and we like to repeal the old policies. So again, it's fairly straightforward. I'm not going to bore council with reading the report to them. It's fairly straightforward. The purpose, the background, the discussion, and again, the impact to budget. The township has allocated 26,000 in the 2023 budget for this project. So we remain within that budget. And obviously this aligns with our strategic priorities: service enhancement, goal number 3, which is a premier employer, and action number 4, actively instill a positive environment and culture at the township and pride in the community. So, Madam Mayor, that is the report and the recommended motion.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Ron. Questions or comments on this report and the attached policies and policy statements? Councillor Hodgins.
Just one really quick comment on the respect in the workplace, harassment and violence procedure or policy. Just because this policy applies to all employees, elected officials, volunteers, students, contractors, and consultants, I guess I just want to note that we'll have to make sure that we do share that when we do hire contractors or consultants so that they are aware of it. So just to note that. Thanks.
So through you, Madam Mayor. Yes, that's correct. We continue to evolve, I guess is a good word, because not only do we need this type of education for our consultants and contractors, we also need to basically brush up on our insurance policies as well, and getting them to name us as additional insured and things like that. So we consistently and constantly have to change how we do our business, and this is one change.
Anything else, Councillor Hodgins? Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Okay, so then you have a motion in front of you that council received report number HS-02-2023 for information, and further that council adopts the following policies. Policy number 300-01-2023, health and safety policy statement. Policy number 300-02-2023, roles and responsibilities policy. Policy number 101-01-2023, respect in the workplace, violence and harassment. And further that council repeals the following policies. Policies number 100-35, which is the safe practices policy. Policy number 100-39, the health and safety policy statement, and policy number 101-01-2020, respect in the workplace, violence and harassment. A mover and a seconder for that, please. Councillor Hodgins and Councillor Regan, all in favor, and that's carried. And I would just like to echo what Ron said. Many thanks to Julie and Tina for their work in bringing those up to date. And I know that it's been a process. So thank you very much for that, and make sure that Julie knows that we appreciate it as well. I think you've got some verbals, Ron.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a couple of updates. The Housing Accelerator Fund from the federal government is the application window is now open. We have a meeting set up for next Wednesday with the county staff to basically complete the application and get it submitted. The due date for municipalities with a population of 10,000 or under is, I believe, the 18th of August. So we've got time, but we do want to get it in as quickly as we can. So like I said, we do have a meeting scheduled for next Wednesday. We're hoping that we can get it completed and submitted by the end of next week. So that's that. We also have there's the pay equity and compensation review RFP that is out for circulation now. It's been sent to Marianne Love, our previous consultant, or prior consultant, Warden Updegrove from Listowel, and the third company was a group by the name of Pesci. I think that's how you pronounce it, Pesci and Associates. They're the ones that are currently undertaking the review in Middlesex Center. The RFP has a due date of noon on Friday. So I have already received the one. I do expect to receive the other two before noon on Friday. So that's all.
Thank you for that. Questions for Ron? Did you have anything, Tina? Okay. There's no building finance. Do you have anything, Catherine?
Just one thing regarding our budget process. So 2024 budget, we're getting underway, and the first thing we want to do is do the budget survey. So we're going to hopefully get that out this month. Just getting some feedback from staff, and then if council has any input that they'd like to see on that, to let me know soon. Or if you don't want to do it, tell me now. That's all.
Hey, thank you for that. So if you've got things that you want to add into that survey, make sure you let Catherine know. Any questions for Catherine? Okay, thank you for that. No planning, Public Works. Jeff, do you have anything verbal?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I have three items to touch base on with council. The first one is an update on our paving on part of the plan of Public Works was to pave Kent Street and a section of Maple. I'm working through the quotes on that. JR Excavating is the low quote. I just have to review, but I don't see any reason not to take the low quote for those paving jobs in town. The reason why I bring that forward now is because our next council meeting, the paving could be going down. So if anybody has any question, I want to make sure council is aware that that's going through. And it seems pretty straight. There was no curveball. It was pretty straightforward. The second item I just wanted to update council on is we did get our 40-kilometer-hour speed signs up in our park areas. There is one sign still missing that's still going to be going up. So our next part of that process will be to educate and start communicating some of the education behind why we have those 40-kilometer-hour speed signs up in the park areas, and get that word out there. And then once we get that education in place, then we're going to, as council has directed, introduce some traffic calming measures in those areas, and we'll try some different combination of items, and then after we've had those items out there and we've had a chance for the public to use them, we'll hopefully in the fall then present maybe a survey to the community to see how this has all gone over. So I think it's moving forward. And then my third item for council was an update that, and this one's a little bit more, I don't want to call it a serious, but there was a complaint came in, and it has to do with the compost site that exists at the Granton Park. Part of it was the smell. There is a smell that comes, or the complaint came in about a smell from the compost being there. I did talk to staff about it. There is a smell. And the reason behind that is that we have the bin sitting there, which the compost goes into, but it's taking with there's not a lot of material coming in. So the bin, there's not a need to take the bin and dump it. So the compost is sitting there for weeks at a time, and wet compost sitting there for weeks at a time starts to smell. So being next to a park and being next to a ball diamond, I can understand why the complaint came in. So in discussion with Paul and Ron, there's not a lot of options at this present moment. But I think one of the things I'm looking at is that we will take the bin out of the park for the remainder of the summer, and then bring the bin back in September when the heat has gone down. There's more material coming in. The bin can be taken out and replaced on a regular basis, and there's less people using the park at that time. I just wanted to point out, prior to this is what we were doing prior to this year. So I think part of this is a learning curve, that leaving the bin there year round during the summer hours maybe is not a good thing. So everybody in Granton, the green waste collection at the Sainsbury Public Works Garage will still remain open. It's still fully accessible 7 days a week. And so the grass clippings and any other limbs can be taken in there, or they can hang on to them. And when the bin is returned in September, there'll be lots of access to, it'll be back in the same spot.
Okay, thank you for that update, Jeff. Are there any questions or comments for Jeff? Councillor Regan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Sorry, Jeff, I just was wondering if there was an update on there was a concern I think I brought to your attention about Sainsbury, about the dip at the end of Sainsbury, and I just wondered if there's any follow-up to that.
Yeah, and through the mayor, I did meet with Ryan Hillinger today, and he's going to review the pavement that went down on Sainsbury and Alice. And just to give a little bit of background, we've now finished the contract on Sainsbury and Alice. The last item was to pave and then put the markings down, which just happened. There has been, Councillor has brought forward to have there is a bump or a dip in the pavement. So as a county road, it is their specifications and their specs. So they'll review that with Chris, and whether some further adjustment to the pavement has to take place. That'll be something the county will inquire about. Just even though the work has finished, there is outstanding, there's a holdback, there's warranty, there's lots of space there. We haven't walked away from the project yet, but we will follow up with that.
Thank you. Thank you, Jeff.
Any other questions or comments for Jeff? Okay, thank you very much for that, Jeff. Paul.
Thank you through you, Madam Mayor. The first report in front of council today is in regards to the minor ice sports rate and the Lions Den fee to be reflected on the fees bylaw. The purpose of this report is to add these fees to the bylaw. Main one is the minor sports rate to better function with the online booking software, as well to better reflect it to the community, council's dedication to support minor sports in the community. We've felt before how it was never actually reflected on the fees bylaw. So there's many people in the community that aren't aware of council's support. This will better achieve that result, as well as the functionality of the booking software. It needs to be on there as a separate fee. The other issue on there is the Lions Den, the new space. It's the heated viewing area above the ice surface. There's already been a lot of interest into renting this space. Obviously, this would be a call to reserve space, as we don't want it to negatively affect anything that's happening on the ice surface. But we need to have that fee on the fees bylaw for audit purposes, that it's been authorized by council.
Okay, thank you for that. Questions or comments on this report? Okay, then we've got a motion in front of us that report number PR 13 2023 be received and that council approve the fees for the minor ice sports rate and Lions Den on the fees bylaw schedule F as presented. A mover and a seconder for that, please. Councillor Westman, Councillor Regan, all in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Do you have anything verbal, Paul?
Yes, just a few verbal reports, Madam Mayor. First off, there's been very positive uptake to the investment that council has made in the Lucan Biddulph Community Pool, as well as the Lucan Biddulph Community Memorial Center. There's been a huge amount of people coming through that front door that have never been in there before. We can't keep community guides on the shelf, and they are becoming aware of programs that they didn't know that we had, even though we as a township have been mailing it out to houses and making sure everyone's aware. They still don't know that those programs are there. So the fact that they're actually coming and are interested, they're seeing activity happening. It's generated a lot of positive communication in the township. So it's been a very good experience. Part of that experience with the pool, a huge feedback that we've heard is the heat in the pool has been fantastic improvement. You know, a lot of that attributes to, you know, we don't have the loss of water that we did have before. The new structure, it holds heat better. But when we did do maintenance on the pool furnace this year to make it just for startup, it was commented to us that we should be looking at a replacement of that furnace for capital budget. So that will be coming up in the capital budget discussions this year, because obviously that's a huge thing for the community to make that pool successful. So we want to make sure that we maintain that. Beyond that, now that we own our own garbage and recycling bins at the community center, we will be switching away from our current waste disposal provider to Blue Water Recycling, as it is a program that we are part of. And the fact that we have our own bins, it's the more financially viable route to go, and we should be supporting that program.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Paul. Any questions or comments for Paul? Okay, thank you very much. Lisa, do you have anything?
Just a couple quick things, just a moment, please. Switch over here. Should have prepared. There I am. Thank you very much to you, Madam Mayor. Just like I said, a quick couple of verbal updates. The survey for the food cycle program pilot project we are considering for 24. We have put out a survey on social media, just asking people, would they be interested if this did come through? We'll also include that on the next newsletter as well. The township mobile app, we're looking to launch that early September. So we'll be working that in August to get that up and going. And just a quick reminder of July 22nd is the Lucan Summerfest event, daytime festival and concert event. That's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Lisa. Any questions or comments for Lisa? Okay, moving on to councillor comments. Deputy Mayor Manders.
Just a couple, the soccer fields, the new soccer fields, the grass, how is it coming along? 'Cause my thought was that if the grass wasn't coming along, we'd replant or we would have a chance as far as warranty goes and stuff. I'm just curious what the state of all three are and if there's a concern with any of them.
So we did have a meeting with the contractors as well as the seed provider just to get some additional advice on how to proceed forward with that. And we've developed a good plan with GHN onto ensuring the growth out there. The two lower fields that were seeded first, they're coming along quite well. And then the premier field is also coming along quite well. Like the weather wasn't in our favor in spring. Obviously, it was the driest May in record, but due to the irrigation system out there, we've been able to get ahead of that. And so those three fields are coming along very well. There is a fourth field that there is a delay on seed growth. So there is a plan to overseed. They've got the fertilizer plan in place. And worst case scenario, next year, if we lose the one top soccer field, we should have at least 2 good soccer fields for replacement for that season, and then keep people off the other 2 fields to ensure proper growth.
And from a standpoint of satisfied then with what we're paying for and what we're getting then and making sure that's what we're getting. Okay.
Yes.
All right. And then more a comment, maybe our senior staff and our council over, maybe we bring it up next meeting. I just garbage cans on our main street. I picked, it's by the dentist office across the road from Clark's. I had picked up a ball. I never even thought about it and just thought I'll throw this out in the garbage. And the first can from that corner is all the way to Bank of Montreal. And I just, that's the first garbage can from there. If you go across the lights, you can get to Clark's and come back across the lights. But if you're walking on that side, the new sidewalk, and turn right, and you pick up garbage in our community, there's no garbage can to there. And also, I believe the arena, which we have a large volume of people ideally walking to and back. I think the first garbage can coming out of the arena, they either throw it on the ground or they hold it to the post office, I believe. So just a comment. I think a couple more garbage cans. Those are the 2 spots I had in mind, kind of one close up this way, because I do believe there's probably a lot of people walking out of there, and especially with the new canteen going in there, maybe walking out with food. So that comment, so I don't know what, it's not really, I don't know if it's a discussion or not, but it's something to keep in mind. And then, I don't know how we do from there. I guess I'll leave it to kind of Paul, Ron, and Jeff, I think, to think about that and I'll get back. And Maple Street was interesting, Jeff. I had a note on Maple Street from a resident. So it's interesting how Jeff's already started to, it's going to be paved. I drove by it today just to see how, it was in rough shape, and lo and behold, it's getting fixed. So there you go. So yeah, thank you.
So Ron just said they'll put the garbage cans on a bring forward sort of thing in. Okay. Any other council comments? Councillor Regan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just have one comment. So I was visiting our library last Friday, and there was 2 very nice people from VON with an information booth. So I stopped and talked to them just for a few minutes. And one of the things that they were wondering or asking about was that they're really in desperate need of volunteers. So I said that I would just give them a plug and just say that if you want to volunteer, they really need volunteers. There's lots of areas that you can volunteer in. I said that I would just sort of pass, so they can, if they want to contact them, I think they're at the head office and they're on the Strath. Yeah. So they can contact them there or go on the website. So I have contact information here as well. So anyway, I just thought I told them I would mention that and see if we can get some more volunteers to help them out.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Regan. Any other councillor comments? Councillor Hodgins.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just something that came to mind, just an observation, walking around or taking a jog through town. In one of the newer parts of development, off of Spencer Avenue, I think it's Abbey Lane, Watts Drive, that newer phase of those developments in that area, where the houses aren't being built yet. There's road that's paved and there's curbs, but a lot of it is it's pretty uneven, or there's cuts in it, and so I'd assume that it's still under construction, and it's not a municipally assumed road. But I was just thinking about potential risk or liability, because people are walking through there or cycling through there, and perhaps some signage would be needed, just to make it clear that this is not a public road, or something to that effect. So maybe to Jeff, just I don't know if he has a comment on that or is aware of that situation.
Yeah, and through the mayor, I think that's a really good comment, that there should be some signage, and the subdivider, the developer, I should say, should put something up there, particularly because you can become complacent that there's nothing going on right now. Whereas in the middle of a construction site, it's the middle of a construction site. So I think that's a really great idea, and I will follow up with the developer on that to explain that it is no public access to it, and just on a side note, to that, that road is there is going to be more, I don't want to call it fixes, but there is going to be padding and some improvements done to the base coat there. And they've done some hydro cutting across a couple of spots. So I did get some information that that's going to be completed in the next little while. So.
Any other councillor comments? Okay, so I just had two. Seems so long ago, but it wasn't. Ron reminded me that he and I met with MP Peter Fragascatis at the end of June. He and his executive assistant came out and spent, I don't know, good 45 minutes. Telling them about all the great things that are happening in Lucan Biddulph, but of course, making our pitch for perhaps some funding for the wastewater treatment plant. And so not sure where those conversations are going, but again, it's just a matter of having those conversations. We've had the conversation, of course, with our MP representative, Leanne Rood, and she sits in opposition. So we felt that to have the conversation with a sitting member of government, to make them aware of, kind of the challenges that small communities are having when we're being encouraged, not only by the province, but by the federal government to build homes and to grow. And that if they want those things to happen, they need to be a player in the game. So certainly not a lot of promise. But again, I think it was a productive discussion. And again, with the half application going in, and we made certainly them aware that we were putting in a half application, and being probably one of the few municipalities in Middlesex to put one in to take advantage of the program. Certainly making him aware, I think, is a positive as well, because these things tend to come across desks of sitting MPs in the region for approval. So at least he's aware that we're taking advantage of that. So it was a good discussion to have him here, and for them to see what's happening in the area. And then I had actually had a question, Paul, for you. I do know, and it was referenced in the PRAC minutes, that you had a user group meeting, and I just wondered how that went and if there's going to be any further follow-up from that.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor, and my apologies, that wasn't my note to speak about. The ICE user meeting that we did have was very positive. And we were collaboratively working together as a group to help come up with solutions to some of the ICE requests and the ICE needs at the Lucan Biddulph Community Memorial Center. As you know, the programs are all growing a lot, and it's time to look at how we operate and possibly look at change. So we came up with some good ideas, and they've put it to our staff now to put those ideas together. And then we're going to have a follow-up meeting later this month to, bring it back to the group to look at, see where we can free up some ice, where we can, come up with alternate ideas to just help. So I think, a lot of the groups were very receptive. It was a very positive conversation, and a lot of them did come to the table with some very good ideas and willing to work with each other. So it was a very good conversation.
Okay, thank you very much for that update. Appreciate that. We'll look forward to positive outcomes coming from that. And then the other thing that happened was last week, the province did approve Middlesex County's official plan. And it came through on Friday. So the planning staff at the county, it did come through with some modifications. So the planning department at the county is in the process, obviously, of looking at what those modifications are. I would probably safely say that I don't think that they'll be unsurmountable, because I think that if they were going to be big changes, then the province wouldn't have approved the OP. So they've approved it with some redlining in it. And then, of course, once the county has gone through and seen what that happens, then obviously then the local municipalities OPs will be approved as well. And I would hazard a guess, because again, the county is like us, they only meet once in July and once in August. I would say it would be optimistic to think August, but probably maybe September to see those approvals come through. So that really is good news, because now at least we know that the counties has been approved. So we are in much better shape than we were 2 weeks ago at this point, when we had absolutely no idea when that approval was coming through. And certainly I think the approvals for the local municipality OPs will happen fairly quickly from there. So that's a good news, I think, for everyone concerned. Okay, one last call for councillor comments. Okay, with that, we'll move on to, there's no changes to budget, any notices of motion. Okay, into the motions and accounts in front of us. So the first one is with the accounts paid, the council of the Township of Lucan Biddulph received the attached accounts as paid for information as follows, and that's for June of 2023. And they were $2,810,532.70. A mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Westman and Councillor Regan, all in favor, and that's carried. With regards to the healthcare crisis, whereas the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Lucan Biddulph acknowledges the healthcare crisis in Ontario, and whereas municipalities across the province are facing challenges in medical care, specifically lack of available physicians for emergency departments, now therefore be it resolved that the Council of the Township of Lucan Biddulph supports municipalities' efforts, urging the Minister of Health to address the current healthcare crisis, and that the resolution be circulated to the Premier of Ontario, the Ontario Minister of Health, and local MPPs. A mover and a seconder for that, please. Councillor Regan and a seconder, Deputy Mayor Manders, all in favor? And that's carried. That the council authorizes Maggie McGregor and Julie Overholt to enroll in Unit 3 of the Municipal Administration Program through AMCTO at a cost of $425 plus HST each. A mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Westman and Councillor Hodgins, all in favor? That's carried. And that the council authorizes Tina Murner to enroll in level 1 of the Municipal Clerks Institute program through AMCTO at a cost of $1,075 plus HST. A mover and a seconder for that, please. Deputy Mayor Manders and Councillor Hodgins, all in favor? And that's carried. We have two bylaws in front of us. Bylaw 32-2023 to establish various fees and charges, and bylaw 33-2023 to adopt and confirm all actions and proceedings of the council of the Township of Lucan Biddulph for tonight. So that if no one cares to speak to bylaws 32-2023 through 33-2023 inclusive on their first, second, and third reading, they be considered to have been read a first time and passed, read a second time and passed, and read a third time and passed. A mover and a seconder for that, please. Councillor Hodgins and Councillor Regan, all in favor? And that's carried. And resolved that the council meeting be adjourned at 8:18. Mover and a seconder, Councillor Westman and Councillor Regan. Just before I call the vote, a reminder, we don't meet now until August 10th, 8th, but that is a morning meeting. Okay, so just a reminder, that is a morning meeting. August 8th, 9 a.m. So all in favor of adjourning?